please welcome Sal Padillia, Enterprise DevOps Architect with Duke Energy. Give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is Sal Padillia. I am the Enterprise DevOps Architect at Duke Energy. So, Duke Energy, a little bit about Duke Energy, is we've been around for 150 plus years, which is a really long time. We're one of the largest power holding companies in the United States. We serve approximately 7.6 million customers in 6 states. And we generate almost 50,000 megawatts of electricity. And we also do gas. We have 1.6 million natural gas customers in 4 states. So I myself implemented my first CI/CD pipeline about 13 years ago. And at that time, the only thing around was cruise control. So does anybody use cruise control? Hey, right. That was good for about a few years. That was before Jenkins was even existed, right? But it served its purpose. Actually, you know what's funny? I still have cruise control running because I think there's one app that's still there. And it's going to die here soon, very soon. So at Duke Energy, utilities historically have they've been very slow on the technology curve, right? We're very conservative when it comes to technology because one of the things is security is paramount. When you're dealing with the national grid, right, or you're dealing with nuclear, right, those are targets for some very bad people. So we operate 6 nuclear plants, and nuclear is very serious about security. Another thing about Duke is reliability, right? We're very big on reliability. When you flip that switch or you turn that gas on, you expect that electricity or your light to come on, your gas stove to come on 100% of the time, right? And if it doesn't come on, you're going to be like, I'm going to call somebody, right? So reliability is very big with us. And that leads us to why we're here today, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So 2 years ago, we started this IT transformation like everybody else. IT, digital transformation, right? Goodbye waterfall, right? Everyone has to be agile now. But the problem with agile was we didn't have a CI/CD environment. We had it at a small business unit level, but we didn't have it for the enterprise. And to be able to do agile, right, DevOps is the cornerstone to agile. You can't really do agile without it. And we didn't have DevOps. So, and in any case, so here we are. We're starting an agile journey. We need to stand up DevOps. We don't, and then the rest is history, and we'll go over what we built here in a minute. Another thing we're doing, we made a big investment in DevOps, and we're actually now going for cloud first. We're going to start moving things to cloud. And this is a slide, this is a guiding principle I have hanging outside my office. I saw this at Jenkins World this past year, and it basically summed up what I think is DevOps, the principle, a guiding principle for DevOps, which is to give developers great power, but at the same time allow organizations to innovate while satisfying their great responsibilities. And we're not a university, so we have to keep things within the guardrails. I'm going to kind of tell you what our DevOps journey and what we did, and maybe you can get some good ideas from that. So CloudBees Core CloudBees is the engine driving our DevOps pipeline. It's providing us the automation, the security, the high availability, the speed to delivery, and quality and agility. From a 10,000-point view, from a 10,000-foot view, this is kind of what we did, what we built. And I'll go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. On the left is the developers, the development side of the house. On the right is the operations side of the house. Everything in between is DevOps. And as you can tell, we have a very diverse portfolio. So it starts with developers checking in code. We have two, actually, source code management systems. We use SVN and Bitbucket. SVN we had around for a very long time, 10 plus years, and Bitbucket within the last 5 or 6 years. And it really is because of the new generation, new folks, new kids coming in. They only knew Bitbucket because that's all they taught in that university. So they only use Git. Okay, it is what it is. Let's stand up Bitbucket, and it's not worth dying over. Once they check in the code, they have the option to do peer reviews. So they have the option of using Fisheye Crucible, authoring a review, and any defects or issues found during the review, the reviewer can create a JIRA ticket, gets assigned to the developer, and that is a way of tracking and your defects and making sure they're getting resolved and in the next release. So once the code is checked in, Jenkins, of course, as everyone does, triggers their build. So they check out their code, we pull the dependencies, we start the compile process, and we run unit test. The code is continuously integrated and continuously works, hopefully, because the unit tests are working. Then we do automated testing. So we use Tosca and UFT today. We're still working on the Tosca. It's still building out. We're getting more and more every day. We have the option of doing CA virtualization. So if you're not familiar with that tool, let's say you have a web service and you want to mock a response from it because the developer or that team hasn't built that code yet, you can use CA virtualization to mock a response as part of your unit testing. So you can do your development without having the actual web service, let's say, built yet, right? And then when it's built, well, you can use that. But in the meantime, you can mock up a response. It's kind of handy. Then we will run a SonarQube scan for code quality. We want the code to be good. We want quality code. We want code that works and that is supportable. So we're going to be starting to roll out SonarLint to kind of help with this. SonarLint is the IDE Integration Tool that uses SonarQube rules in the background. So we'll be more shifting left that code quality scan in the future. So then we get to code security scan. We'll do we'll scan your code for OWASP top 10, let's say, or hard-coded passwords. That's a very common one. Again, with this one, we're going to roll out the IDE Integration Tool, Checkmarx IDE plugin. And so developers can check their code while they're writing it. Then we create a deployment package, and we publish that package to Nexus. So it could be a jar, war, Docker container, NPM, whatever. In the case of Docker, we create the image in the pipeline, and then we push the image to our private Docker registry. the last security tool we recently just implemented was Nexus IQ, which is probably one of the most important ones that we have implemented. So Nexus IQ will scan any open source components used by applications or even vendor products. It can scan Docker container. It could just open that container, look at the contents, and see what that container is using. And even it's especially good for vendor products because we can see what the vendor products are using. Any open source, so it continuously monitors any CVEs even after the application has been deployed to production. So if a CVE is found after it's been deployed, we'll get notified, and then we can go to the application group and say, hey, there's a CVE, can you fix this application? So what we're trying to avoid is of course, the Equifax fiasco, right? Who's using struts too? Actually, it'd be funny, it would be bad actually, if the CIO came to me and said, do we have this vulnerability? Which they didn't, thank God. My answer would have been, I don't know. I have to scan everything. But now I could say, well, let me just check here. No. And if we did find something, more importantly, I will be able to tell where it is. Because that's the other part. Not only do you have it, but where is it? That's the other side of the question. And if you haven't seen a David Weeks presentation from Sonatype, you would be very scared to use npm.js. And and guess what everyone's using these days? JavaScript. And where are they getting it from? npm.js. So this is another reason we said we got to get this tool up now so that we could find what people are using, because they're just downloading things. And we got to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. We got to get a handle on that. So then we start the deploy. We triggered Jenkins to use Jenkins to trigger the deploy in some cases, and simpler cases. We also have XLD and XLR so XL Deploy from Zebia Labs is our automated deployment tool. XLR is an option when you have the more complex releases, right? If you have this has to happen before this happens, and you have to update this database first, and then you can do this, and then you have someone has to sign off and approve that, that's where we use XLR. We take that spreadsheet that everybody uses to deploy, we convert that into XLR, and then we just push the button. That's awesome. Then for containers, we use Narmada, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So Narmada is a software layer we have sitting on top of Kubernetes. And deploy can be automatic. You could have continuous deployment, or you could have an approval gate. We have a lot of groups who say, hey, I have to approve this before the deploy can happen. So it really depends on your needs. But we allow for both. So when we deploy, then we finally deploy, we support a lot of runtimes at Duke. There's not a technology we did not like. And we actually keep all the old ones too. So we just keep adding more to it. So Windows, Linux, web methods, Hadoop, we have a lot of big data folks now. WebSphere, we're trying to move away from that. WebLogic, hybrid cloud is probably where we're going. We can do post-deploy tests. So we could smoke test your application after it's been deployed. We use Puppet for our host configuration management. If you ever try to manage or keep in sync 1 or 2 servers, it's probably not bad. More than that, 50, yeah, you want to use Puppet. Because the chance of you keeping all of them in sync are very, very small. And think of all the hours you would be saving. So recently, in August 2017, we started a cloud strategy. We started looking at a cloud strategy. And it was very apparent, talking with Gartner and talking with other companies, that the industry was landing on Kubernetes. So who else is basically convinced Kubernetes is the way to go? Oh, only about half. What's the other option? is what I'm wondering. So thank goodness. So CloudBees has adopted Kubernetes, but we implemented Kubernetes about 9 months ago. So we went from concept to production in about a year, which in the utility industry is like ridiculous fast. We've bought into Kubernetes because it allows us to seamlessly run our applications or tools on-prem or off-prem without changing a thing through Docker, right? Docker is the secret sauce there. And then on top of that, Duke is starting to go through microservices like everybody else, right? So what happens is, in this process, we start with a base image that our DevOps groups manage. So we will create a base image, we'll scan it, we'll Dukeify it, we'll put it in our PDR, and then we give those to the developers to start from. They don't just go to Docker Hub, pull whatever they want, and expect us to run it. That's not how that works. We give you a base image. They actually just tell us what you'd like. We'll go build that base image for them and everybody else in the company who wants to use that technology, and then that's where they start from. So they'll take the base image. They can actually test it locally if they see that we're now on Docker 10, our Windows 10, so you could run Docker locally. So they can build their Docker images locally, test them, check their code in. Jenkins will then build the Docker image and check that into our private Docker registry. Then Narmada, we have Narmada deploying the container images to any Kubernetes environment, which is really cool. So Jenkins and Nexus, Jenkins actually interfaces to Narmada, and we basically hand off to Narmada, and Narmada can just deploy it anywhere. And Jenkins doesn't change. And actually, the developers or the application teams in the future won't even know where their application is running, whether it's on-prem or off-prem. They just see an environment. Behind the scenes, that environment can be anywhere. So that's pretty nice. That's something they don't have to worry about. And we're able to leverage off-prem cloud. So our roadmap. So now that we have Kubernetes, right, and CloudBees is all in with Kubernetes, we're looking at running CloudBees Core on Diamonte, bare metal, Kubernetes infrastructure. For those who aren't familiar with Diamonte, it's a HCI, hyper-converged infrastructure appliance, running NVMe SSD drives. So to say it's fast is an understatement. And I really cannot wait to run CloudBees Core on this. That's going to be a lot of fun. Diamonte can be configured in a stretched network. So we have 2 data centers. So we can be HA. We'll have CloudBees running on both data centers. And with CloudBees adoption of Kubernetes, that was just perfect for us. So, like I talked about Narmada, basically Narmada is our single pane of glass to all our Kubernetes infrastructure. Diamonte is our on-prem Kubernetes infrastructure. and that's what it looks like. It's a 3-node cluster. Or actually, the minimum is 3 nodes, but it's usually 4 because you have one master and you don't want to run you need 3 worker nodes minimum. You can run a master on 1. Oh, this thing stops. But you really want it on its own. And then from there, with all that in place, now we can go to Kubernetes DPA, Distributed Pipeline Architecture, which is what a lot of folks at Duke, a lot of groups at Duke, we get this question all the time. Hey, can I have my own master? Right? Can I have my own agents? I want to manage my own master. I want to add these plugins, but these plugins don't work well with those plugins. So it's like, oh, yes, you can in the future, in the near future. Right? You can have your own master. You can manage it yourself. You could put your own plugins and have your own agents. And that gives us an isolation between our applications, which is very important to us because, for example, Nuclear will have their own, and only Nuclear can see or touch their own stuff. Same thing with like critical infrastructure or a customer. The appearance of multi-tenancy is very key. It's a very big thing in Duke. Like even within the Kubernetes infrastructure, they can only see or touch what their applications. And then we're going to have it run in the core pieces. Will be running on Diamonte. We may do some agents on Azure AWS. Maybe do some testing agents. When we run automated testing, we may run them out there. But we'll see. My first priority is getting this stood up on the core on-prem infrastructure. So now we're set up with HCI, Kubernetes infrastructure, plus CloudBees Core equals one rockin' pipeline. So we're going to have scalability, quality is built into the pipeline, security is built into the pipeline, performance, reliability, high availability. So what have we learned in our journey? So some of the success factors that we've learned. Evangelizing DevOps. DevOps, when they first asked me to define DevOps 5 or 6 years ago, when that became the hottest buzzword in the industry, what is DevOps? I jokingly said, DevOps is a lifestyle. It's a culture. And they didn't get that. They thought I was just like, they just okay, what's your next answer? No, it really is. It really is a culture. It's how you work. It's how you do your work on a day-to-day basis. And they didn't get that it's about quality, it's about consistency, it's about automation. And being able to write your code in the morning and then have your folks testing in the afternoon, and you repeat that over and over every day. We were doing it for 10 years, and we were used to that. That's how we lived. But not everybody at Duke did that. So then we had to bring everybody else and educate everybody else on that DevOps culture. And we started now having DevOps champions or DevOps evangelists. We actually designated certain folks within lines of business to be DevOps champions, to be DevOps evangelists, to speed up the adoption, right? Then with all these tools that we're doing, with all the scanning and quality, all the scanning that we're doing, there's actually 4 phases of technical debt that you need to apply for that's really hard that we're finding, because we're still doing this. This is still not done. We're in the monitoring and calibration phase today. So we have all these tools that are running. So we're monitoring, calibrating all those tools, reconciling all the rule sets between SonarQube and check marks, right? That's time consuming and it is very tedious, so that's where we are right now. The harder part is actually governance and enforcement, because that requires organizations to change or possibly even staff people that they don't have today. Like, we're trying to say, cyber, you own the check marks rules and the Sonar and the IQ rules because that's a cyber thing, right? And they're saying, well, we don't have those folks. Okay, so we need to get some folks. And the enforcement piece of it is, you have all this technical debt. You have all these defects that our scans are finding. Your code has these security vulnerabilities. You have these quality issues. How do you get those folks to fix that technical debt? What I'm trying to get around to everybody to buy in at Duke right now is, you're on this Agile journey. You have a Agile center of excellence. That is where you need to bake this into your Agile process. As part of your Agile process, as part of your daily Scrum, right? You need to look at that. You need to look at your technical debt, because if you let that get out of hand, you'll never catch up. You need to look at that on a daily or weekly basis, right? And you need to enforce that through Scrum, through your Scrum and your Agile teams. That is, they're still working on. I'm still trying to convince them of that, by the way. Another thing with a large shared infrastructure, because we have a shared infrastructure, and we have to be able to control who can see what. So you really need to think of how you organize your code, how you organize your Jenkins folders, and for the purposes of RBAC, right? So you can't let people look at your nuclear code because of the passwords in there, properties files, or even PsyOps, or even customer, or your identity access management tools that are in the system. So think about how you're going to organize that. And what we did was we segregated by application groups. And we did that because we were reorging every 3 years. But what we found was, the applications tend to stay together, right? So we created a concept called application groups. All the gas kind of stayed together, and all the gas went with this new organization, with this new manager. So that kind of allows us to not have to move everything around all the time. I talked about the appearance of multi-tenancy. For us, utilities, focus on your customer, and that's probably true for everybody. Your customer is number one. So for us, DevOps, we are a service provider to the IT community at Duke. They are our customers, and their customers are you, right? Everybody else who consumes or uses electricity or gas. So CloudBees helps us do better, and that helps the IT folks do better. That helps the end customer do better, and they're happy. So that's why at Duke and the utilities, it's all about the customer. Here's the thing about DevOps and the automation, which is really scaring a lot of folks. They think automation, and I'll tell you a secret to this. They think automation means you're gonna take away their jobs. Oh, you're automating this. You're not gonna need me anymore, right? I know I'm the only one that knows how to do this, so you need me, keep me here, right? We get a lot of that. No, actually, what we're doing, all this manual stuff, all this tedious stuff, we're making you better. We're making you more consistent, right? We're reducing your defects. And while we're doing that, we're saving you a lot of time that you can now use to learn new things, like Docker, like Kubernetes, right? So now, you're not doing the boring stuff anymore. We're taking all that away from you, so you can learn new things. And when you phrase it that way, it's like, oh, we're not getting rid of you, we're making you better. We're allowing you to learn new things. Then they're like, oh, okay, I like this now. Let's do more of this. And at the end, what happens is you get a better product. You get more consistency. You get more reliability. You get security, which the cyber folks really love because security is baked in the pipeline now. And so the company, the upper management, the VPs, the CIOs, they're all happy, right? They're getting smooth rollouts. The code is better. The quality is better. You sell it to them that way, right? I'm not taking away your job. I'm making you better so you can learn new things, learn new cool things, exciting things. In the past few years, I've done a lot of POCs, and I've looked at a lot of technology, and I've evaluated a lot of technology. And what I've learned is it's not as much about the technology. That's a big part of it, but the people behind that technology, it will greatly impact your success. Like when I was evaluating Kubernetes platforms, I had this company and this company and this company, and it was obvious this company and the people behind them were a lot brighter than these other folks. I'm like, well, if I'm relying on these people, I want the smartest guys. I want people who are smarter than me, right? So and same thing for CloudBees. And I got to give a shout out to Evan and Brian, who are Evan Dubai, sitting over there, and Brian, who's not here today, who's our customer success and account managers, for having our backs. Thank you for. We've had. You're a safety net, right? And you've saved us from a lot of few falls here recently. But that's why we went with CloudBees. That's why we use CloudBees. It's the people behind Jenkins, CloudBees, people like Evan, people like Brian, people like their support staff. We've talked with people like in the other side of the world because our problem was so hard. Like we got, wait, let me call so-and-so from in Italy. He knows how to fix this. We've had problems that hard. Or if we don't know how to do something, which very often actually, by the way, we just got to pick up the phone, send an email, open up a ticket, send it, and within hours, not even hours, minutes, we get a response, right? And within that day, we'll either have it fixed or within a couple days we'll have it solved. We'll know how to do it. This is recently we're doing a migration and we're not sure. So we run this by CloudBees and it's like, this is our plan, and they actually said, no, you should do it this way. Oh, good thing. Just saved us. They just saved ourselves. They just saved us from ourselves. So that's why we use CloudBees. I mean, it's all about the people.